But how about we derail entirely back to the discussion about, should we talk about the riots in Holland and the Civil War coming to the Netherlands?
Yeah, and tie it in with guns, because Alex is here, and I want to know about.
Yeah.
Well, they don't have guns.
Guns, they don't.
No,
but they could.
They sure could.
They could. I don't know if that would be a good thing or not. I mean, perhaps it's a good thing for individuals to have the ability to defend themselves. I think in the context that I'm trying to say is when people are out in the streets fighting and, there's fear of a civil war, maybe we don't want people escalating to that point. The problem is one side already has guns and they're using them. So I'm not saying they're using live rounds on the people in the Netherlands, but here's the story. The Daily Mail says lockdown fury sparks a third night of violence in Holland with hundreds of protesters looting shops, torching cars, and battling police. The Netherlands hit by a third night of rioting on Monday with clashes in Rotterdam, Amsterdam, and The Hague. Police said 184 people have been arrested by Tuesday morning and promised more arrests would be made. Hundreds of rioters had looted shops, set fires, and clashed with police who responded with water cannons. It comes after the Netherlands introduced a coronavirus curfew from 9 p.m. until 4:30 a.m. to bring cases down. Now, I believe it was the mayor of Eindhoven who said that we are on the verge of civil war. And I think it's actually, is it up here? I don't know. They changed their articles so much. Here we go. Rioters first struck on Sunday night in Amsterdam. Eindhoven, what did I call it? Eindhoven and multiple other towns, seeming to catch authorities off guard and prompting warnings from some politicians of civil war. John Joritsma, mayor of Eindhoven, warned bluntly that we are on our way to civil war.
Yeah.
They say despite the unrest, many countries in Europe are considering tightening their lockdowns. This is a impossible conversation, an impossible discussion, to be completely honest. People often ask, where's the line in government intrusion until you say enough and then demand a redress of grievances to the point where there's clashes, right? Because I tell you, in China, they're shoving swabs up people's butts. At a certain point, the line has been breached, right? But for now, it is a fact that in this country, the line can never be crossed. There's no line. There's no point. There's you could have a bunch of people who have no plan thinking they're going to occupy a building, and that's the revolution. It's not. But I think we're at a point where there is a global security infrastructure that's not going to allow for that to happen. So it could all break down at some point when people just lose it, I guess.
Yeah. Well, in the Netherlands, this is the third night of widespread rioting and violence that even some local politicians are saying will continue for days or weeks. They burned down many testing facilities. They're fighting police officers in the street, and this is predominantly over the lockdown restrictions and specifically this curfew, because a lot of people are saying, what, does the coronavirus not infect you under a certain time? Does the coronavirus have a bedtime? And there have even been studies showing that curfews are absolutely pointless and they do nothing except hinder daily life and allow the police to have an excuse to take away your liberties or your money away from you. Alex, you had something to say?
It's complicated.
Yeah.
Because we can go deep in the philosophical discussion on when you lose your national sovereignty and you start having those the civil war sort of clashes and armed resistance, and what happens when one side of that when the side of that argument where the people who don't think that their government has the authority to sort of rule over them anymore, what happens when that group doesn't have an equality of arms with their
right,
for lack of a better term, their masters. So, I mean, there's a real philosophical argument to get into, and you see a lot of it through Portland, through the Antifa riots. A bit of it popped up in DC, and I don't know. It's
you know what I think, the armament of the people changes the threshold for when those people will react violently. And so you look at somewhere like China, and the state is a massive security state with censorship, control of all weapons. There's the likelihood of an uprising is slim to none because the odds are so much against the people. There's concentration camps in China right now. In the US, it's a bit more precarious because you have to think about the amount of pressure on an individual to make them act and the capability they have to actually accomplish something. In a place like China or in Europe, the ability to accomplish something when you have an armed state versus an unarmed populace is slim, unless you have critical mass. So the line at which it becomes a civil war, like this Dutch mayor is saying, is further away than it is in the United States. In the United States, you can get one crazy guy with powerful weapons who feels he can actually do something. That's scary to me. It is. Because we want stability. We don't want instability. No. We're not currently dealing with people getting anally swabbed, but we do have the curtailing of our freedoms. I think the question is for the U.S., even with the curtailing of our freedoms, we're still pretty much living in luxury relative to other places.
Yeah, but also against that kind of sentiment that you said, in Europe, all you need is a truck. And there have been incidences where there have been deadly events that have been far more impactful than shootings in the United States because of some crazy person saying, I'm just going to run a whole bunch of people over with a truck. So, that's another sentiment here that we need to understand.
But what I mean is, if in the U.S. they started doing mandatory anal swabbing, I imagine things would break down really fast.
A lot of social justice warriors would probably like that.
They would probably okay with
that. And so maybe if you want to make the argument, then maybe in cities things would just go along. Like we've seen what's going on with New York. They just go for it. But think about that. The cities are unarmed. For the most part, people in the cities are completely unarmed and would just go with whatever they're told. Then just look at the militias in this country and the groups that are armed. They tend not to be living in cities.
No,
so either they're moving out for more freedom, or they're more self-reliant and more, don't tread on me. You look at places like the Netherlands. The point I'm trying to make is you require very few people and much less rage and oppression for an armed population to rise up and say enough. Whereas in the Netherlands, you're going to have people who are like, what am I going to do about it? I can't do anything. I'm on my own. But eventually, when you get thousands of people in the street, that's when that line is crossed. So you need more people and more oppression for an unarmed population to finally snap and revolt, which I think is a very simple equation. It explains why governments don't want people to have guns, especially Democrats don't want people to have guns, which is why I think, what you're, doing, Alex, is it's going to be interesting. I guess the way people say it is the cat's out of the bag. Gun control is over.
Yeah. Can't do much. Sorry, I hit the table. Can't do much about it. It's people, and the kicker is people have been making guns in their homes for the last 100 years before the advent of 3D printing.
Now, what's the laws with that? Because I know some people have, don't really know how clear it is, what they can do, what can't they do legally.
Right. So on the federal level, it is entirely legal if you are federally able to possess a gun. So you're not a felon, you're not a domestic abuser. There are a couple other criteria in there that I'm not on the top of the mind.
I think you can't be a drunkard.
No, you can be.
I don't know. When you buy a gun, it asks you, are you a drunkard? And if you put yes, they say, get out of here, you can't have a gun. No, for real, yeah.
On the form that you have to...
Arrested for public intoxication?
No, it just says, are you a drunkard or habitual drinker?
That must be an old law.
Huh. Yeah.
And I think there's also something about...
are you addicted to alcohol or any other substances?
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there's also another section about psychological issues, right? Or
you can't beat your wife.
Yeah.
Or your husband.
Right. So there are a couple of criteria that will disbar you from owning a firearm. But if you're able to own it, then you should be able to make it, without any real hang-ups. Mail order parts and straight to your door.
What can't you manufacture locally? What parts?
There aren't any at the moment.
Oh, wait, so you can make a full auto?
You can.
You can legally make your own.
Oh, okay. No, I see. Sorry, I understand what you're saying. You cannot legally make a machine gun because you cannot legally possess a machine gun.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, right. The law actually stops the manufacturing of machine guns. That's it, right? You can grandfathered in machine guns, right?
Right. So there was a machine gun registry before they were forbidden, and you can own those. They're very expensive, somewhere in the realm of like $20,000 for one.
What if you had like a gun with 30 barrels that fired 30 rounds at the exact same time?
That's volley fire, which is legal under the law.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep.
See, it's no such thing as a dumb question. Huh?
Yeah, there was a revolver that came out recently that has 2 barrels. You fire two 38 specials out of it. I could be wrong, or 222s. But with one pull of the trigger, you get 2 bullets out of 2 barrels.
That's
so
amazing.
Only if you want to transfer a firearm do you have to contact the ATF and get a serial number for that firearm. Is that correct?
The jury is out on that one.
Okay. Because the ATF usually changes its mind,
right?
More than politicians flip-flop,
right?
And they're all over the place with their definitions, which are very confusing. Their kind of understandings and their legal arguments are kind of all over the place.
Right. So to get into the nuts a little bit, it's manufacturing exclusively for personal use, not for sale or distribution. So if you make it with the intent to give it away, you've committed a felony. If you make it with the intent to sell it, you've committed a felony. If you make it with the intent to use it solely for yourself, for whatever you are using it for, then you're fine.
Wow. So I pulled it up. I just Googled it, and we have it's TRexSmallArms.com. Arsenal Firearms AF 2011 double barrel pistol in 38 Super.
Yep.
So it is a handgun with 2 barrels.
Yep.
It's $4,000. 5-inch slide, double barrel, semi-automatic 38 Super caliber. Fires both barrels with one pull of the trigger. Now, why would you want that?
Because it looks cool.
I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't have it.
You
I'm
can
just saying,
flex
like,
on
you know,
your friends with the same gun,
That's
but only
me.
one barrel.
Right.
Like, look, I'm
got
cooler
2.
than you.
Yeah, I'm twice as
Well,
cool
no,
as you.
but I think about the question the left often asks is like, why would anyone need this? Is there first? I understand the immediate response is it doesn't matter. I don't need a reason. I have a
Right.
Second Amendment right to own arms. That I get. But is there like a real functional or tactical reason to having volley fire or double barrel? You know, one trigger pull, 2 bullets.
Well, I mean, you're putting twice the amount of projectile into whatever you're shooting at. So if you're hunting bear with an AR-15, you're going to want more than one round. But you really shouldn't be hunting bear with an AR-15.
So we talked about this though. We talked about full auto is actually bad tactically. Tactically.
Generally speaking, it just wastes a lot of ammo. In most military type engagement, you're going to be shooting at an individual target. There is an argument for it where you're talking about suppressing fire coming from machine guns. But when you start getting into like fully auto out of a 30-round magazine, it's kind of not great. Like it's useful for the military. There's a reason that they have it. If you're in a pinch and you just click the button over.
Don't they call it spray and pray?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Spray and pray.
I just wanted to do a clarification also. When Nancy Pelosi lately had said that she wanted crewman machine guns on these things, they're actually called crew-served weapons.
Yes.
My friend that was in the Army was like, please tell everyone.
Well, we just read what Ken Cuccinelli said, and he said crew-manned machine guns.
He's part of the patriarchy.
Crew-served.
Just kidding.
Patriarchy.
Yeah. Crew.
So
Crew-served weapons.
you can't make full auto,
Right.
but that's full auto's not even a good thing anyway. So it seems kind of redundant.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's an argument for it. If you can control it, then you can be accurate with it, and that's a training thing, which you need exposure to train with it. So there are arguments for and against.
Are there guns that will automatically fire when they target the person?
You're talking like an automated turret system?
Yeah, like if you turn it and it sees the person or the target or the deer or whatever, that then it will fire when it sees it. Yeah, is there anything like that?
Kind of. There was a company called Tracking Point. They made a really fun optic, and I think a later iteration they built it into a full rifle platform where you're hunting and you see the deer and you want to hit it at a specific point to get a
Which
good
you have to.
clean kill on
Yep.
it. And so it would wait until you would pull the trigger. And then you would adjust your position so you would line up properly. And once it lined up properly, it would fire. It's been years since I've seen this.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm remembering it exactly. So don't quote me.
Well, you want to
on
make
this.
sure you don't wound a deer because
Right.
they're going to run away and they're going to
Right.
be injured and they're going to be suffering. There's a specific place on the deer, I think in the lung heart area.
Lung
Correct
heart,
me
yep.
if I'm wrong. That you have to, if you shoot once, it's a
It's a pretty good sign that it's going to be a short,
a clean kill and the animal's not going to suffer.
Right.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. We do the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. So come back to check us out when we go live. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and we are also available on all podcast platforms for free if you want to listen to us there. Thanks for hanging out, and we will see you all next time.